Here's a recap of our top story tonight. South Korean President Moon Jae-in has described the growing trade dispute with Japan as an unprecedented emergency, but reassured the country's tech sector that the government would step in and provide fiscal support. President Moon Jae-in met with executives from South Korea's top 30 conglomerates today to review the situation, after Tokyo said last week that it would stop shipments of compounds needed by high-tech companies to make chips and smartphones. He also called for South Korea to develop more autonomy, saying its dependence on the restricted materials from Japan must be reduced over the long term. So let's take a quick look at market reaction to all that. South Korean stocks rallying on the news of the government intervention. The Kospi up some 0.3%. Shares in South Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics, LG Display and SK Hynix all ending the day's trade with gains, a sea of green there. But over in Japan, Japanese investors, they're playing it cautious on that news. The Nikkei was down 0.15%, while the broader topics lost some 0.2%. Now, for more, we're joined by Dr. June Park. She's adjunct professor of global affairs at George Mason University, Korea. Dr. Park, some very strong words from President Moon today as he called for less reliance on Japanese suppliers. Can South Korean firms succeed without Japan?
This kind of an endeavor that the president is requesting in terms of building autonomy, less reliance on Japanese components, may be an achievable goal for South Korean industries in the longer term. But in the shorter term, having a significant stockpile in order to fabricate, in order to manufacture, it's really critical to make deliveries. And for Samsung and SK Hynix, this is a very critical moment for survival.
A critical moment, Dr. Park, but some analysts believe that maybe even China might stand to gain from this trade dispute. How so?
So the semiconductor industry is a highly competitive one where over 4 decades, in the past 4 decades, there have been shifts in the leadership, industry leadership, the U.S. To Japan, Japan to South Korea, and now there are contending rivalries. Chinese companies trying to ratchet up its skills and its technology in terms of competition on the semiconductor global market. So if ever there is a vacuum caused by this political rift between the two countries, right now Samsung and SK Hynix are at the very top, along with Intel and Micron. There could be an opportunity that the Chinese companies may be able to step up to.
So the historical grievances between Japan and South Korea, they're well known, but how much are they to blame for this dispute?
I would say it was a catalyst. The historical strains between the two countries are more deeper than one can ever realize. But when this was met with Prime Minister Abe's upcoming House of Councilors election on the 21st of July, the political domestic agenda coming from the Japanese side was in some way colliding with the South Korean directions at this time.
Dr. Park, in the event that these two countries fail to reach common ground, what risks do you see for them?
The biggest risk that I see going forward is the decoupling of the two countries in terms of economic cooperation. So in a sense, with the North Korea-South Korea endeavors and North Korea-U.S. relationships, South Korea has been a little bit aloof from Japan over the past few years during this administration under Moon Jae-in. So economic cooperation was probably the only thing that was hanging on to the previous existing relationship. If that's also gone, then decoupling could be a lot more disastrous than we can imagine.
Dr. Park, thank you very much for your perspective on this news. We've been speaking there with Dr. June Park from the George Mason University, Korea.